Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Toni Carrier from Low Country Africana, and I'm here with my dear friend and colleague, Angela Walton Raji from the African Roots podcast, My Ancestor's Name, The Beginning Genealogist. I'll let Angela tell you about all her blogs. We're coming to you from RootsTech 2017, and we've been here for the last 4 days just having a ball and learning a lot, doing a lot of networking, and we're just delighted to be here. We're really excited, though, to be able to spend a few minutes talking with you about the Freedmen's Bureau records. We presented on the Freedmen's Bureau records when we were here, and Angela and I collaborate an awful lot on projects about Freedmen's Bureau records because Angela and I both literally live in the Freedmen's Bureau records. And we found out last night that we both have this quirky habit, and that is that we read Freedmen's Bureau records for leisure. We actually hope for time to read Freedmen's Bureau records. So we're really excited to be able to spend a few minutes with you this morning just talking about the Freedmen's Bureau records, because something very important has happened in the last couple of years. And that is that thanks to a collaborative effort between several organizations, 4 million Freedmen's Bureau records have been digitized, indexed, and made available on FamilySearch.org. The collaborators were the National Museum of African American History and Culture at the Smithsonian, FamilySearch, OGS, which is the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, the California African American Museum, the National Archives and Records Administration, and thousands of volunteers just like you and me who volunteered to index these records. The project started in 2015, wrapped up in 2016, and these records are now available for you to search and also browse on FamilySearch. So we're really excited that these records are more accessible than they've ever been, and that's why we chose to spend a few minutes with you this morning talking about these records and why they're so important. I can't stress enough what a rich and tremendously significant record set this is for African American genealogy. And I think if you understand what was going on at the time that these records were made, you will begin to see why they were so significant. Let's think about the end of the Civil War. The Civil War, first of all, itself disrupted all the systems. It disrupted normal life. People were moving about to places they'd never been before. But at the end of the Civil War, this was especially pronounced because the end of the Civil War brought about one of the largest social transformations that our country has ever seen, namely the emancipation of thousands of formerly enslaved people and the movement of formerly enslaved people from enslaved status to full members of society, with virtually no precedent and no convention for moving formerly enslaved people into full citizenship in a free society. And at the same time, you also had the disruption and the upending and the dismantling of all of the civil, governmental, social, healthcare, religious systems that were in place in the former 15 slaveholding states. So you have this enormous social transformation taking place, and yet a lack of agencies and so forth to make that transition possible. So it was up to the Union forces occupying the 15 former slaveholding states to provide these services and to put these structures in place, even courts. There were no courts. So you had provost marshal, provost courts, etc. So if you think about all that was happening right then, you realize that there were some dramatic stories that came out of that time period, and those dramatic stories were lived by your ancestors. Your ancestors were the ones who made this history. You know, history is nothing more than the collective of individual histories and individual lived experiences. So I would like to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Angela Walton Raji. I'll let her tell you about all of her blogs. And Angela and I work together a lot, and I love working with her because we have a similar approach to genealogical research. We're both fascinated with the practical applications of genealogical research to public history. And so we're constantly looking for those stories that need to be told, the stories that need to be amplified in those records. So, Angela, I love the approach that she has, the framing approach that she has to the Freedmen's Bureau records and what makes them significant.
Wow. Well, thanks, Tony. One of the things I think is very, very important is to really understand how we have been describing our own family's story, or how we've been putting it into what context. And we, up until recent years, have been trying to draw a line, then we stop that line, and then we jump over 5 years and keep going. And now we have something to take us through those 5 years we've jumped over all this time.
Yes.
Now, what I'm talking about is the fact that we encourage people and have taught people to research their family to 1870. Then, well, that's the first census since they became free.
Right.
Then find the slaveholder and go back further to find your family. What we have been missing has been probably a segment that is the most story rich. It is the most story rich. This is the time in which individuals were able to have their marriages solemnized officially, to find and reunite their families.
Right.
There were children still being kept in custody by former slaveholders, and people having to appeal to the Freedmen's Bureau for assistance to get their children back and to be able to live intact as a family unit. Absolutely amazing. To be able to negotiate work for pay. And amazing because this is a population that never was allowed to read, write, count. So not having that sense of quantity or currency. How do you negotiate a salary when you've never been allowed to hold a coin?
It's a huge
It's,
transformation.
it's tremendous. And one of the things that I think that is so incredibly rich is that we're not only just finding out what happened to our ancestors in 1866, but also 1867 and 8 and 9 and into the 70s,
That's
actually
right.
beyond 1870. But we can find out what happened. We learned how they were treated
That's right.
if they were ill. And there was a lot of disease, especially in those camps, those settlement camps, those contraband camps. It was not sanitary. Smallpox was popping up, measles popping up. And one of the contraband camps, Corinth, had to shut down because of the measles epidemic. They could not bring in more people. And we had that crisis. Here in this country, we've not experienced war on American soil
Yes.
since the Civil War. So
Absolutely.
there's not a soul alive who remembers seeing that dramatic change. Not a soul alive who knows what it was like to see hundreds of people taking to the road. You know, we see that on the evening news,
That's
and we think, oh, that's those other folks, those refugees, those
Something
foreigners.
that happened to someone else.
We don't know that that happened here. And it happened to millions of people. And they were on the road going to a new destination, some not even knowing where they were going. And some who were just sort of following another path just by somebody in front of them, not understanding a lot. So these records are full of the undertold or forgotten stories, and
Yes,
that's what
indeed.
makes them significant.
Yes, indeed.
I could go on forever, but anyway.
Well, I love the way you frame that uh, about we really haven't experienced
No,
war
we haven't
in our
seen
country
it,
before.
and we haven't seen the
And
aftermath
so
of it.
I think we don't realize how significant the disruption was of
Clearly.
everyone's lives. Well, thank
Clearly.
you so much
Oh, yes.
for sitting down with me to discuss the Freedmen's Bureau records. And friends, I hope that you will spend some time exploring this new collection on FamilySearch. You can search the index, but you can also read microfilms frame by frame by frame to learn your family story and to tell your family story. Thank you so much.